for you tonight. Hey, Phil, how you doing? Tyler? How you doing? Interesting. Oh, Mark, oh, just in time, guys.
Look at that.
7 o'clock.
Good thing all the police officers were here.
You know, the roads are slippery. All right. It is 7 p.m. in Gardner, Kansas. You don't even have to sit down, Rich. Time to bring the city council meeting to Gardner in order. Will you please rise with me and we'll take the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. We have no presentations this evening, but we do have a public hearing. The public hearing is for the purpose of receiving comments on the proposed CID for Waverly Plaza. Just a bit of ground rules here. We're not discussing the development itself here. All we're doing is discussing the financing plan. The development has been approved. The development agreement has been reached, and so this is just for financing. Having said that, I will entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Gorsuch, second Baldwin, that we open the public hearing. Oh, was it you?
Point of order.
Rich?
Melton.
That was Melton. Okay. Motion Melton, second Baldwin, that we open the public hearing for the purpose of receiving comments on the proposed community improvement district of Waverly Plaza. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, any abstentions? The public hearing is now open. Couple of ground rules. First of all, if you wish to come up and speak, is a 5-minute time limit, and then no profanity, no personal attacks. With that being said, the mic is now open. See no one coming forward, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Motion, Melton, second, Baldwin, that we close the public hearing. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? The public hearing is now closed. We are back in regular session. Now's the time for public comments. Members of the public are welcome to use this time to make comments about city matters or items on the agenda that are not part of a public hearing. Since we just had a public hearing on the Waverly Plaza CID, comment will not be allowed on that. However, we will take public comment on any other items on or off the agenda. That being said, there's a 5-minute time limit, no profanity, no personal attacks. And with that, please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Heath Freeman, 602 North Walnut here in Gardner. I'm speaking tonight actually on November the 13th. The city posted the legal notice for ordinances 2631 and 2632 regarding the recent annexations of 199th Street. Those notices didn't have any information regarding the location of the land being annexed, and directed those interested to the office of the city clerk here at City Hall or to the city's website, gardnerkansas.gov. As of this morning, neither of those ordinances were easily located online at the city website. Our page dedicated to new past ordinances has not been updated since April of 2019, and there's no legal notice page on the city's website to find this information either. If we're going to seek out cost-cutting shortcuts, it's important that we aren't doing so at the detriment of the services being provided to the citizens. These shortcuts can't limit our access to the information or make it more difficult to seek out the information that we have the legal right to. It can't be difficult for us to find. I frankly know how to find a lot of things, and I couldn't find it anywhere outside of the agenda, and that can't be in the intent when we take those legal shortcuts. I don't want to sit here and say we did anything that inconspicuous or illegal with the way those were posted. But if we are going to take that method of doing so, we have to back it up with what's promised within those notices, and it's not on the website in a way that can be easily found. So I want to bring that to everyone's attention tonight and ask that we act in a way moving forward that will correct that issue. I have one other item before I step away. I did want to ask if the governing body could speak with staff or direct staff to investigate opportunities for better Christmas and holiday lighting systems in downtown Gardner. Frankly, the ones we have now off of City Hall, but City Hall's a fine-looking building, but the light posts and things, once it's dark, they just don't shine very bright. There's just not enough to them, and perhaps it might be an opportunity to look into some partnership for sponsorship of some of these things, partnering with civic organizations. Perhaps families like my own might want to sponsor particular signage if we know what the costs and things will be involved. But I think we can do more. We're a big We're a big city. We have a vibrant downtown, and we need to celebrate that this time of year. And it should shine bright like we want it to, not just City Hall, but the poles themselves through that downtown district. So I wanted to bring those two comments for now, and I appreciate everyone's time. Thank you.
Thank you, Heath.
Adam Cox, 285 East Skylark Street. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. I rise to speak against the designation of the Legal Record as the official newspaper of Gardner. This publication is not a newspaper in any sense of the word. None of the content is accessible to residents of the city of Gardner, nor are physical copies of the publication available. While I'm not clear on what Kansas statutes require to be qualified as a newspaper, the legal record remains a complete mystery without being able to read it. I find the justification based on cost to be a contrived exercise. Perhaps the council might consider passing on the cost of related legal notices to those who derive the benefit, i.e. the entity requesting rezoning, for example, could pay for the required notice. I've not forgotten the numerous times various council members have railed against the free press and called for punitive measures against perceived insults. I've not forgotten the misuse of the city's social media account to attack the paper by an individual using the pulpit under the guise of the city. I also have not forgotten the value of investigative reporting to uncover injustice and abuse of authority, especially by those in positions of power. Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. The Gardner News should be supported as a local business that provides valuable reporting on local events of all types. Instead of thinly veiled punitive measures against this institution, perhaps more open dialogue would enable issues to be resolved productively. Cost should not be the only deciding factor. The value of this institution must be weighed, as well as the fact that the legal record stated that they did not want to publish Gardner's notices. Sadly, in today's climate, it seems to be the easier answer to stop communicating and use any leverage at one's disposal to attack and crush one's enemies. This aggressive approach continues to be reflected in our society as division into us and them, and the battle lines are then drawn and the war begins. A bit dramatic talking about a newspaper? Maybe so. Another way to look at it could be that as each institution is attacked and falls, the pillars of our free society further crumble. Free press, rules of polite behavior, the social contract under which we all live side by side together. In public service, the ego is supposed to take a back seat. In public service, the constituents matter more than the elected. In public service, getting the upper hand is no longer the goal for the individual. My hope is that the many people who have expressed their thoughts on this will not be swept aside with some convenient explanation. Here is a chance for the new council to put our local community first, support a vendor that has been a steadfast part of the community, and look beyond the dollars to the value of Gardner News in performing this service. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam.
Thanks, Adam. Anyone else?
Hello, Council. Denidre Herbert, 223 West Main, Gardner. I need to preface all of this by saying I'm not speaking on behalf of my former employers, my current employers either. I'm speaking on behalf of myself as a longtime resident of Gardner. And I want to echo some of the things that Mr. Cox said, but I will most importantly say I think what you guys need to be, the other thing I should mention is the 199th Street, which is, I guess, some kind of scandal that I didn't even know about. My property was one of those that was annexed into the city with that. So there you go. And I have a professional working relationship with John Lewis, who was once a board member for something for the Sentinel owned by KPI. Okay. So my concern with what you all are about to do is that perception is often reality. And the perception is going to be that if you approve the legal record to become the official paper of record for the city of Gardner, the perception is going to be that you are using the power of government to reward your friends in some instances, or to punitively punish, to punish your detractors. And I think that is a road you don't want to go down. I know that you are basing your decision on the $5,000 cost. I think you're not considering the cost that it is to residents to do this, and you may have a problem. In fact, I sometimes struggle with this problem of having to pay for legal notices, but it is a statutory requirement, and if the cost is a problem, that's something that you need to take up with the state government and not try to browbeat a local business that is one of, if not the oldest businesses in this community. You have a couple of different avenues if you feel like you are being unjustly accused of corruption by the local paper, and some of those avenues that you have are actually costly. For example, I believe once a month I get a little letter at my house that is glossy, 4 pages, full color. I have no idea what that costs. I think the last time I looked into it, it was more than $10,000, and that's once a month. So $120,000 a year. If your concern is truly buying police cars, I would argue that that's one place to look. But you also can use that avenue to debate or to try and clarify anything you feel like has been inaccurately reported in your local newspaper. And when you use the cost of this effort to try to say that that's your reasoning, no one's going to buy it. And quite frankly, the most recent example of why no one is going to buy it, aside from the negative comments we've all seen on social media, the negative comments that have happened from the dais, the negative comments that we hear around town that the council has made about the local newspaper and its owner, is just going to be simple things like the fact that 4 days ago, I got at my house a keychain that I'm sure found its way into everyone's trash cans that says, check your water. Are you making sure you're not getting leaks? How much did that cost? Are we really willing to put the perception of this community at risk by looking like a corrupt local government to save $5,000 when we're out passing out keychains that I guarantee are in people's trash cans right now as we speak? It's bad for business. It's bad for your egos. It's bad for the city.
Thanks, Deidre.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, Adriana Mater, 32604 West 171st Court, Gardner, Kansas. Just for the record, I want to read in the email I sent to the mayor and the city council for the record. Mayor and council, I'm requesting that the city of Gardner maintains the Gardner News as paper of record. This is a local business that should continue to be supported by our city government. Thank you for your time. So just wanted to have that on record. I understand there might be some concern with cost and a way to look at cost savings, but also think about the cost you're putting towards the citizens who have to drive to Olathe to get a copy of the legal record, which I personally have not seen. I think you can get an online subscription, but what I saw, I think one download of one issue is $28. That seems excessive. And also, you've got a lot of folks that don't have transportation to Olathe to readily just jump in their cars and drive on over and get a copy. We've got a lot of elderly folks that you also want to, consider. What about those that are over in, Meadowbrook or Bethel Estates that just they can't get there. So some things to think about if that's really, the avenue you want to take is going a cheaper route. Well, then make it accessible to those that might not have the easy access like you can with the Gardner News. So thank you for your time tonight.
Thanks, Adriana.
Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to confirm there'll be an opportunity for additional comments at the time of the new business item.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Anyone else?
Is this on forum?
This is a public comment period for just general business, yes.
Good evening. My name is Mike Darple. Actually just...
Address, please.
17050 Agnes Street.
Great, thank you.
Just a couple comments that I wanted to make and maybe a question in there. One, when I read the Gardner Edgerton, magazine just the other day and whatnot, it sounds like there's some good stuff going on the east side of I-35. One thing I'd like to see the city do that I think would enhance the city and make us look better and more presentable and whatnot. I'm not sure why we don't enforce I don't know if it's enforce is the right word, but have all the businesses along Main Street have Christmas lights along the buildings. I don't know if this is my first time I've been up here, so I don't know if this has been a comment from other people, but I just think it would really enhance our community, our Main Street and whatnot. It makes people want to come out here a little bit more, in my opinion. Or if they do come out here, it's more memorable to them. As far as driving through the city and the town and stuff like that. I think the city hall has lights, and I think one other business has them, maybe two. But I think it would really enhance the look of the city and entice. We're all about bringing in more people and business and all that kind of stuff. And then my only other comment is just curious when the main drag as far as the road's going to be repaired. So anyways, thanks for your time, and look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Great, thank you, Mike. Anyone else? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Is there any member of the council that wishes to remove an item from the consent agenda? Seeing none, I'd like to entertain a motion on the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion Gregorczyk, second Melton, that we approve the consent agenda. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? The consent agenda passes. Next item on the agenda is the planning and zoning consent agenda. Is there any member of the council who wishes to remove an item from the planning and zoning consent agenda? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion on the planning and zoning consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Melton, second Winters, that we approve the planning and zoning consent agenda. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Planning and zoning consent agenda passes. There's no committee recommendations this evening and no new business, old business, I mean. New business item number 1, consider adopting an ordinance authorizing the creation of the Waverly Plaza Community Improvement District in the city of Gardner, Kansas, and authorizing the imposition of a community improvement district sales tax to be collected within such district. You look very red this evening, Director Powell. How you doing?
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. We try hard to be presentable on city council.
Very nice.
This new business item is actually a joint business item. Mr. Wolf is out of town, so I am here with Mr. Ellsworth of our bond counsel from Kutek Rock to present this to you. It is a staff recommendation for adopting an ordinance authorizing the creation of the Waverly Plaza Community Improvement District in the city of Gardner, Kansas, and authorizing the imposition of a community improvement district sales tax to be collected within such district. This basically is one step in many of several financial vehicles that are being utilized to assist this particular project. Mr. DeVillibus is in the audience tonight if you have questions for him. The Waverly Plaza project does include an estimated 59,700 square feet of commercial space and 144 apartment units, a pool, and a clubhouse. The 1 cent sales tax, though, is really only collected from the retail or the commercial aspect. The entire project is thus described, though, because it's all included in the district, because it's easier to do that legal than it was to split it. So other than that, Mr. Ellsworth is here to answer any question you might have and give a short update and presentation for you.
Great. Thank you, Larry. Evening, Tyler.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I just had a couple of remarks that I wanted to make, and I think Larry covered probably half of them already, just talking about what the ordinance does that you're being considered tonight. It is a 1% add-on sales tax on the retail portion of the Waverly Plaza project. And as Larry said, this is just one part of the total incentive package for this retail and residential development. So there's a special benefit district component that we've been before you in the last few months, putting in place special benefit district financing. Bonds have been issued, actually temporary notes have been issued and closed on for improving a few streets that are adjacent to this development. There is a neighborhood revitalization program tax abatement. There will be IRBs for a sales tax exemption and a property tax abatement on the residential component. But essentially the takeaway is this is just one piece of a larger, sort of more considered, more thought out package of incentives for this project. The other thing I wanted to emphasize this evening was council's recently asked staff and consultants to do sort of a better job, maybe a more proactive job about explaining why the city council is being asked to consider these incentives for particular projects. So for this particular project, it activates and develops a key corner in the city that hasn't seen development for many years. And it also, looking at the total incentive package, provides a way for the city to see additional access, additional roads improved. And those are some of the things that are accomplished with the incentives and the incentive structure for this particular project. So I wanted to make sure that that was on the record. And with that, I'm happy to answer any additional questions about the ordinance or the CID or the other aspects of the project.
Thank you, Tyler, appreciate it.
Yep.
That being said, there is time for public comment on this particular item. Does anyone have public comment on new business item number 1? Seeing none, council, any questions for Larry or Tyler Ellsworth, bond counsel, or any other member of staff? No? Okay, you're leaning in your mic. All right, great. Then with that being said, there is a ordinance 2640, I'm sorry, that needs to be voted on. And so I will entertain a motion on that ordinance.
So moved. Second.
Motion from Gorsuch, second Melton, that we adopt ordinance 2640, ordinance authorizing the creation of the Waverly Plaza Community Improvement District in the city of Gardner, Kansas, and authorizing the imposition of a 1% community improvement district sales tax to be collected within the district. City Council, will you please call the roll? City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Winters?
Yes.
Councilmember Baldwin?
Yes.
Councilmember Gorsuch?
Yes.
Councilmember Melton?
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
All right, ordinance 2640 passes. New business item number 2, consider a resolution designating the legal record as the official newspaper for the city of Gardner, as the official newspaper of record for the city of Gardner. Hi, Amy, how you doing?
Hello, good evening, Mayor, Council. KSA 12-1651A states the governing body of each city of the second and third class shall designate by resolution a newspaper to be the official city newspaper. This is important because under Kansas statutes, the city of Gardner is required to publish several different types of legal notices in its official city newspaper. The most common of these are ordinance summaries and public notices, such as notices of public hearings, like the one we had tonight. Other items include, but are not limited to, resolutions and ordinances required to be printed in full, which can be extremely costly. Bid and other notifications may also be subject to publication based on Kansas statutes, city policies, or a combination thereof. The official city newspaper for the city of Gardner, as you know, is currently the Gardner News. Since 2017, a total of $25,360 has been spent from the city clerk fund alone on advertising/legal notice expenses relating to such publications. While other city funds also have advertising and legal notice expenditures, staff focused the example analysis only on the city clerk fund, as all known expenditures of this type are for required legal notices published in the official city newspaper, and no expenditures in this fund are related to advertisements of any kind. The graph pictured here shows the difference between budgeted spending, represented by the blue bar, and actual spending, represented by the yellow bar, on advertising and legal notice expenditures in the city clerk fund for 2017, 2018, and 2019. Please note that the 2019 amount shown is based on the December 6, 2019 budget to actual report. The 2019 actual amount will not be finalized until after the conclusion of 2019 and will likely increase from what is shown here. In 2017, the actual spending of $4,976 was 124% of budget. In 2018, the actual spending of $7,619 was 177% of budget and 153% of 2017 spending. In 2019, so far, the actual spending of $12,765 is 255% of budget and 168% of 2018 spending. As illustrated, advertising legal notice expenses in the city clerk fund have increased each year. As these expenses are for legally required publications, staff is not able to meaningfully mitigate expenditures by reducing the volume of publication. In an effort to explore possibilities for cost reduction, staff has requested informal solicitations in accordance with the City of Gardner's purchasing policy, Section 30.2A2, purchases between $5,000 and $50,000. On Thursday, December 5th, 2019, staff sent an actual ordinance summary and an actual public notice to the Kansas City Star and to the legal record requesting price quotations for running each item. These items were selected for comparison for the following reasons. These items both have publication requirements set forth by Kansas statutes. These items are of typical size for their item type, thus providing the most relevant comparisons possible. And these items had recently been published in the Gardner News, thus providing the most current pricing for comparison. The ordinance summary was published in the Gardner News on November 27th, 2019, and the public notice was published in the Gardner News on November 6th, 2019, and again on November 13th, 2019. Current invoices for the publication of these items in the Gardner News were used to obtain pricing from the Gardner News. These invoices were dated November 26, 2019 and November 13th, 2019, respectively. Staff obtained the following pricing for the publications of the ordinance summary and the public notice. For clarity, the Kansas City Star prices have been omitted from this graphic as they were 485.05% and 348.67% respectively of the current pricing for the Gardner News. These amounts were included in the CAF for the item in the agenda packet, however. As is evident, the legal record offers the lowest price for publication for both the ordinance summary and the public notice. The Gardner News pricing is in blue and the legal record pricing is in yellow on the graph here. Based on these rates, the legal record represents the following savings: 82.52% or $35.59 for the ordinance summary, and 73.39% or $101.28 for the public notice. Section 25D of the City of Gardner purchasing policy allows for local preference, providing the amount of the quotation of the vendor domiciled within the City of Gardner is not more than 5% greater than the amount of the low quotation. In order for the Gardner News to meet this threshold, publication prices would have to be reduced to the following amounts: $7.92 for the ordinance summary, a reduction of $35.21 or over 80%, or $38.56 for the public notice, a reduction of $99.44, or about 72%. It is difficult to provide an exact estimation of the overall cost savings, as neither the volume nor the content of required legal publications made each year is static or subject to practical measures of control. For the following analysis, it is important to note that staff realizes the numbers to be presented are variable. However, staff has made a concerted and good faith effort to present the council with what they feel is a reasonable estimation of cost moving forward. Staff has researched the number of ordinances passed each year, finding that 25 ordinances were passed in 2017, 32 in 2018, and 44 in 2019 through December 6, when the budget to actual report was published. Using the cost of publication for the sample ordinance as a guideline, staff multiplied that cost of publication for ordinance summaries, the $43.13, by the number of ordinances passed in each respective year. This number is represented on the graph as the yellow cylinder at the bottom of the stack. This number was then compared against the total advertising and legal notice spending in the city clerk fund for each respective year, to estimate the percentage of spending on ordinance summaries versus the percentage of spending on public notices, which is represented on the graph by the blue cylinder at the top of the stack. These percentages were found to be approximately 22% in 2017, 18% in 2018, and 15% in 2019, for an average of approximately 18% of spending being utilized for ordinance summaries. As these are estimates, staff determined that, based on these numbers and due to the variable nature of publication requirements, it would be appropriate to assume that approximately 20% of annual costs come from the publication of ordinance summaries, while the remaining 80% of costs can be attributed to public notices, which includes all other publications from the City Clerk Fund, providing an overall estimated cost savings of 75.22%. It is important to note that while staff perform these calculations in order to provide the best possible estimation of future cost, the projected overall annual savings of 75.22% obtained using this method is only 1.83% higher than the savings of 73.39% that would be found through the publication of all items at the higher public notice rate alone. In the past 5 years, starting with 2016, costs have increased an average of approximately 45.5% per year, with this annual smallest increase being approximately 18%. You can see the cost represented by the yellow bar on the graph, and then the growth from the previous year is represented by the blue in the background. As, again, it is not possible to reliably estimate cost increases for the reasons outlined above, staff offers 3 different 5-year cost savings estimates for consideration, based on extremely conservative yearly average increases of 25%, 15%, and 0% with the current official city newspaper. At a 25% yearly increase, the legal record would give us a savings of $98,503.18. At a 15% yearly increase, the cost savings would be approximately $74,450.10. And with no yearly increase in spending, the legal record would represent a savings of $48,009.17. The slide shown here is based on the conservative 25% annual increase. The graphs for 15% and 0% increases would be the same in appearance, only with proportionally smaller numbers. Please note, these cost savings are for the City Clerk Fund only. Additional savings would be incurred in all other city funds with advertising and legal notice expenditures related to required publications as well. Given the potential for proportionally large savings in both the long and short term, and given the amount of economic development activity requiring large amounts of legal publications that will only further increase the amount of advertising and legal notice spending, staff suggests adopting Resolution 2045 and designating the legal record as the official newspaper for the city of Gardner, Kansas.
Thank you, Amy, appreciate it. Public comment on new business item number 2. Again, the ground rules are pretty simple. 5 minutes limit per speaker, no profanity, no personal attacks. With that being said, the floor is now open. Please please furnish your name and address for the record when you come forward.
Heath Freeman, 602 North Walnut. I'll apologize for reading. I don't want to be gavelled by the mayor again, so I'll try to be prompt.
That won't happen.
The reason I'm fighting tonight for the Gardner News is this. They are a partner to us. They're a partner to the city. They're a partner to our school district. They're a partner to our civic organizations. They help tell our story. And I find that there's an incredible value in that that's just being thrown away with the certain numbers that have been presented tonight and not taken into account in any way. I'm here tonight asking that the governing body not move forward in changing the paper of record to the legal record. Taking such a vindictive and retaliatory action against a longtime partner of the city serves the citizens in no way and only lessens the reputation of this governing body. At no time has any citizen come before the council and asked that this action be taken. Not once since this was last discussed in 2017. It's not something that we've asked for and not something that we want. Now, I will take this opportunity to show the white whale. I may be the only person in this room that's seen a printed copy of the legal records. You can't get it in Gardner, but here one is for everybody that didn't know they exist. Nearly every comment on the November 2018 conversation during council comments was related to the content of the Gardner News, leading to a request to make a change in the paper of record. A city should not retaliate in such a way because they receive what they perceive to be unfair or inaccurate reporting. They cannot punish the local newspaper in this way because of their editorial content. While staff has done a fine job phrasing this as a fiscal decision, make no mistake about why we are here again tonight. We are here because some have taken offense to their reporting, and that is wrong. I'm going to share now quotes from the council from that night to illustrate this point. From Rich Melton, quote, "So needless to say, I think that we should move on the paper of record and change it because I'm tired of dealing with it, and I think that staff is tired of dealing with it," unquote. The "it" was their reporting and their questions. Quote, I think that's irresponsible journalism, unquote. Again, reference to the editorial content. Quote, over the past several months, there's been incorrect information printed in the Gardner News, unquote. Once again, content-based decision-making is against everything that we should stand for as a city. Finally, quote, because there are so many people that are reading this stuff and is actually so factually incorrect, unquote. Not only do I think that's wrong, but I also think it's something that a council member should not sit on the dais and say out loud. It's not meant for public comment, not the way that we should attack a longtime vendor and longtime partner of the city. Councilman Winters from the same night, quote, I've been disappointed with some of the stuff that's come out recently, unquote. Again, referencing to the content. And that's the core of my argument today. We're deciding this because we don't like the content. That's why it was brought forth once again. Staff did a fine job getting away from that argument, but that's not why we are here, and no one believes that to be the case. Then finally from Mayor Shute, quote, I've got a problem when a news outlet decides that they're going to inject themselves into the business of the city while making false claims and accusations. So yes, I am a little concerned about this, and I think it needs to be addressed in some way, unquote. Well, it seems that the in some way that Steve spoke of is retaliation in the form of the resolution being considered tonight. He posted to Facebook later on, quote, I'll tell you my position. The city of Gardner and its employees deserve better. And the Gardner News stepped way over the line by not attacking our staff for by not only attacking our staff for so-called corruption, but then concocting a sham protest narrative to obstruct the business of the city under false pretenses. So yes, it's time to move forward, unquote. Again, displaying that clear bias. I'll paraphrase some comments from Facebook later when he compared the newspaper to a restaurant. And if I don't like the service, I should take my business elsewhere. Well, the service that we're paying the Gardner News for isn't their editorial content. We're paying them to post their legal notices. They've not failed once to deliver the service that we've asked of them, at least not once that anyone's ever known about. So they've never failed in the service that that restaurant has to provide. This was actually an open threat, show of intent, to take the city's business elsewhere because of the mayor's opinion on a very few recent stories. Notice how little that night, if you go back and listen, the costs were involved in anyway. This is retaliation. We need a governing body that is not so thin-skinned. So I'll end with a few following points. The legal record does not want this business. Mr. Lewis has made it clear. He doesn't think the city of Gardner should make this change. That's not changed since 2017. I'll think you'll hear later. You can't find a printed copy of the legal record in the city of Gardner. The last time this came up, the city spent over $1,000 in attorney fees fighting the vote from that night. That's at 20% of what the cost for the legal notices were for the year. Again, it's never been about the money. Last time, Councilman Winters, Councilman Gregorczyk voted yes to stay with the Gardner News. I hope they do the same tonight. This is not a win-win. We sacrifice service for the cost that we see. The biased comments that we've seen from others on the dais, I think, deserve a reply from Ryan Dink, the city attorney, of whether there is a bias and they should recuse themselves from voting. And then finally, I'll mention not one single dollar of what we'd spend with the legal record would stay in the city of Gardner. Not one penny. It all goes out of town. And we shouldn't let that happen. That shouldn't be who we are. So we don't need to be this way. I hope we aren't that way. And I ask that you all vote no against the change tonight. Thank you. Thanks for the extra 20 seconds, Steve.
Ryan Learned, 17195 South Oakley. I'll also be speaking against designating the legal record, and I'll also be reading, just like Keith. Thank you all for taking the time and reading and responding to the email I sent this morning. A couple of the responses I received indicated the Gardner News is still free to publish what they want, even if they are no longer the paper of record. This is true. They are not being censored. But the Gardner News does have the freedom to publish information and opinion without the fear of any type of punishment from the government, which could include stripping them of their status of paper of record. In my opinion, we are coming pretty close to a First Amendment violation we could easily avoid. This is just not the simple cost-saving effort as it is being portrayed to be in the published meeting packet. It's been pretty clear by both by a couple members of the governing body in both recorded meetings and social media commentary that they are not happy with the coverage they are getting from the Gardner News. This is why it's being brought forward at this point in time. It's not being brought up as a result of a brainstorming session to cut costs. We aren't actively seeking every possible way to save 0.001% of the budget. It's obvious to me and likely others, this is a retaliatory move against the local newspaper. But the published meeting packet makes no mention of any of the discussion from that November 18th meeting that led up to this agenda item, nor does it mention anything about the last time this came up just over 2 years ago for similar reasons. I brought forward the relevant pages from the approved November 18th, 2019 meeting minutes to have entered into the record just so that this doesn't get lost. I see no value in using the legal record. It exists simply to satisfy the statutory requirement for the cities without a newspaper. We are not one of those cities. We are blessed with our own newspaper. The legal record has recommended Gardner stick with the Gardner News in the past. By moving public notices to the legal record, we pretty much guarantee no one will ever see them. The legal record is impossible to find in print locally, and the online edition has a pretty substantial cost barrier if you want to see anything beyond the current issue. Money sent to the legal record is money down the drain, never to come back. The last time this was fully discussed in August of 2017, the question came up of, what do we get for that extra money being spent on the Gardner News? Dr. Winters put it best with his response 2 years ago that he thinks there is value and that this is the local paper. People go to the Gardner News to read about the happenings in Gardner and the surrounding areas. Some of us, including myself, do happen to look at the public notices while browsing. I hope to continue to see them published in the Gardner News. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ryan.
Denidre Herbert, one more time, and I was going to limit my comments to how bad I think this is gonna be from a publicity standpoint, and just for the record, I've worked on both sides of this before. I've been not exactly on your side as a public official, but I've been out front of a public official having darts thrown at me, being spit at, literally having to carry a gun. So I absolutely know where you're standing, where you're coming from, and I've also been on that side covering, so I think I can fairly say I have a better understanding of both sides than probably anybody else in this room. So I was going to concentrate on how I, again, think this is a public relations nightmare. But after listening to Heath's comments and knowing all of that was actually in print and easily recallable, I'm going to warn you that you're going to get sued. And the money that you would save, this $5,000 a year, even if you win, you have lost. You have lost, not just from a public relations standpoint, you have lost money. The money that it will cost to litigate, and your attorney of record is, I'm assuming, at least he used to be, Mr. Dink was a contract attorney who is probably not going to be able to represent you on this matter because it's a specialized area of law. So you're gonna have to find another attorney and sign another contract, and it's going to be expensive. I don't know if you'll win or not, but it looks bad, and I did happen to see Mr. Dink's micro expressions as Heath was reading those, and he probably won't say it out loud, but I think he probably agrees with Heath. And I did want to say a few things about the math on these. Oh, and one other thing. As a public relations issue, having the employee who's making the other arguments stand right next to the dais is or next to the podium is, no offense, mildly intimidating. So just for future reference, these expenses over the next 5 years and from the last 5 years are based, I know this from watching for years, I think I covered the Gardner City Council for 8 years. Your advertising, which I think is not a good way to put it, your legal notices are going to increase every time you have growth. So you can look at the growth in your city and decide whether or not you want to have those expenses, but they go along with it. And traditionally, the argument has always been, from this dais as well as every other council I've ever covered, that growth pays for itself. If you need to charge a little bit more to cover your legal expenses for your publications, then I normally would not recommend putting those on the developer, but yes, put them on the developer. That's where they belong. Growth is supposed to pay for itself. The PR nightmare isn't just that you're going to get sued and this is going to blow up if you do this. It's also that you're not going to run, despite your best efforts, you're not going to run this oldest business out of town. You're not going to run them out of business. And they're going to have no balancing act. I'm not going to say they're going to be unfair, but I've been there, and they're human just like you are. Your wanting to retaliate is going to be occur on the other side as well, with no holds barred, is my guess. Every extra penny that you spend on things like those keychains and those door hangers that were on my door last week is going to be dug through, and every expense is going to be accounted for. So you think it's difficult now, think of how much more difficult it's going to be when you've angered the people who buy ink by the barrel. The other thing is the fact that your expenses are outpacing your budget so dramatically. That's not the fault of the newspaper. The price of your legals has not increased in the last 5 years. That's the fault of the people who are preparing your budget. That's bad budgeting. If you can't predict better or more closely what it's going to cost, that's not on the newspaper when they didn't increase costs. That's on you. I just want to say one more time, I think you're going to get sued if you do this. So all these costs that you're talking about, I think are not really relevant.
Thank you, Deidre. Anyone else?
Casey Deaton, 533 North Wynwood. I understand what everybody has said and, you know, what the Gardner News prints. I think that's an aside issue. I think you're setting a dangerous precedent by going past your 5% local preference and doing an 80% local preference. I'm sure there is a lot of local businesses that would like to charge 80% more than businesses from out of town and still get your business. If the Hampton Inn charged 80% more to hold the state of the city there, would we continue to use them, or would we go back to New Century Fieldhouse? I think that's a no-brainer. And I get that right now the numbers are small with the Gardner News, but it's a precedent. We have an ordinance of a 5% local preference for a reason. If you don't want it to be 5% anymore, that's fine. Change it. Make it a dollar amount. Anything over $1,000, anything over $10,000, whatever. But don't give one local business preference over another local business. Buying computers, buying anything. 80% is a huge difference. And if you choose to continue with the Gardner News, you're setting that precedence, and any other local business can come to you and now charge 80% more. And as a taxpayer, I'd prefer my dollars be spent more wisely. Thank you.
Thanks, Casey. Anyone else? All right. Seeing no one coming forward, any questions or comments for Ms. Nasta or staff or our city attorney? I believe our city attorney has been requested to weigh in on a couple of these issues, so please. I'll start with Tori.
Oh, wow. Okay, I don't really have any questions. I have more of a statement. Every time I ran for office, and even when I ran this time, I said I'd be the voice of the people. Overwhelmingly, I got responses to keep the Gardner News as the paper of record. I had 25 emails, phone calls, messages, what have you, that say keep Gardner News. I had one person say vote for the legal record. So I can't speak for the rest of you, but I feel like you guys got very similar messages that I got, and I can't believe I'd be the only one that wants to represent the people and would vote yes for the legal record. So I will be voting no for the legal record. That's my statement. No questions.
All right. Mark?
I need more than 5 minutes.
Well, you're not bound by the public comment limit.
I didn't have 25 to 1. It was much more even, but I had a lot of emails. I went through them, so I wrote down most of what I reported back to everybody, and wanted to give that out to everybody. It's interesting that this is more political than a business item. I mean, I literally had more emails on this than fireworks, and that seems to be the issue in town. So the first thing I did was try to think through these questions. Does Gardner News try to mislead the public, or is it providing an unbiased view? You decide. Do politicians not like Gardner News reporting because the story is false or because it's true? You decide. Will moving the legal notices change the reporting by the paper in a good or bad way? You decide. Guess what? None of that matters. So the gist of this, regardless of how it came up, and I'll just leave that alone. Now that it's here, I can't overlook the difference in cost. I can't overlook the 80%. And the reason is, I think there's a couple things that we could do here. So I'd like to see the city's website better utilized to provide the public with up-to-date information as possible.
Absolutely.
So if it's a city matter, I want it to be posted and out for everybody to see. Not just legal notices, but developments, effects of our governing body decisions, purely from fact, no opinions. I want the city to be a leader in providing that information to the residents, not needing to search the Kansas City Business Journal, Kansas City Star, Gardner News, some 12-year-old's blog, whatever. That is ultimately gleaned from the city via a reporter. Let's get it all straight from the horse's mouth. But an independent media source should write editorials on whatever content they want. But that's not what this vote is about. And the public is not required, but the public should always have an independent media source providing public notices to them so that you don't have a government doing whatever it wants, right? So regardless of who that is, it needs to be done. So if there's always an independent entity in the past, right, before newspapers, this was literally nailing it to the, not city hall, but your government's front door, okay? Then newspapers came about. We started putting them in newspapers because that was the media of the day, right? Everything was print. Well, now it's moving online. We've all seen it. It's continuing to. So we literally have 20,000 fact checkers. With the city website, one of the things that was brought up to me was that it's not easy with the legal records to see past notices. I think we should have a rolling 12-month list of the legal notices on a page. This also ties into the timeline feature of the website that I've been wanting for a couple of years, but it would be nice to have something in the council agenda or a planning commission agenda linked to an ordinance or linked to that legal notice. Everybody should be able to easily click and get this information. But there needs to be a distinction about what we're actually discussing here. So freedom of the press isn't being jeopardized, as the reporting ability of Gardner News isn't part of this vote. Not at all, okay? Concerns about the news reporting on city development, school activities, that can all continue. And I hope it does, and I assume it will. There's nothing that says it wouldn't. The average person doesn't look at a lot of legal notices. That doesn't mean they're not important. I would love to have people notice them and call me up about something. But with all the concerns we've had residents in here about, particularly about developments, none of them have told me that they found out via a public notice from the newspaper. It was always from a yellow sign on a property. Business owners might actually like that the legal notices are all on the legal records website, because then you get multiple jurisdictions all at the same time, right? You get Leewoods, DeSoto's, everybody's. So, using rough numbers of 22,000 in our city, or 8,400 households, depending on how you want to slice things, and a print subscription number estimated at 220, again, they're all estimates, means that 1 to 2.5% of our population could currently get legal notices via a print copy of Gardner News. Seeing how print media continues to be reduced, I'm inclined to believe online viewing is acceptable. Also, since I'm tasked with representing the entire city and not a small percentage, I can't vote on this issue biased towards those that are just print subscribers. Some say the legal record doesn't want our business, as evidenced by a letter from their editor 2 years ago. Others said I shouldn't force unwanted business on them. Seeing as they've already accepted a public notice from us, they evidently don't mind the business. Plus, in capitalism, two parties enter into an agreement freely, not where one is forced. So as long as we agree to pay and they agree to print, the argument regarding them not wanting our business is non-existent to me. I bring all that up because ultimately this decision, while people are trying to make it political, is not one for me. If this was a bidded item, the process would be to take the lowest qualified bidder. The legal record is approximately 75 to 80% less than the Gardner News. My understanding is that Gardner News hasn't presented a reduced fee schedule to be competitive. The argument that it's not a lot of money doesn't hold well with me on principle. None of our tax dollars should be wasted. To those that contacted me or support the it's not a lot of money argument, we should save the paper, at what price is it a concern of yours? Favoring a local business just because it's local, despite the cost, is not something I stand for. That's a nasty, slippery slope and has a name, cronyism. Comments that we have a duty to support a long-time business or a family-owned business is not for government to decide, but for the consumers of said business. The National Newspaper Association estimated in 2000 public notices account for an average of 5 to 10% of newspaper revenue. While it's not zero, it's not a percentage that guarantees a business's failure either. If this wasn't about the newspaper, but for toilet paper, and a local company was more than the 105% threshold of the lowest bid, people would ask why we're spending extra for TP, as we should. Because each of our voices and what we should and shouldn't support is diluted when it comes to government spending, the goal should be the best value. That may not mean always taking the lowest offer, but in this case, as many others are, the service is the same. All options will print the notices and provide free online access. Let's face it, in 2019, if the state statute allowed non-print papers of record, these notices would have already been online with possibly them printed out on a bulletin board in the City Hall. Since it is a requirement we have to have a print paper, we should do so at the most cost-effective manner. Thus, unless I hear something otherwise up here, I support changing the paper record to the legal record.
Thanks, Mark. Yes.
I did want to interject. I maybe should have done this at the front end. Councilman Baldwin did a very nice job of framing the appropriate legal consideration here. Mr. Freeman referenced a claim for retaliation. I mean, there have been cases out there based upon newspaper comment and switching the paper of record. So, it's important as we discuss this going forward, that we do steer clear of the content of what is within the Gardner News, and really, I thought Mark did a really nice job of kind of framing the various decision points. And Tori did as well. But again, it's important that we steer clear of past dissatisfaction with some content, particularly content of a political nature in the Gardner News.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely, I completely agree, Council Denk. Randy, you got something to add or questions or?
I do. And I think I've given it a lot of thought, as well as Tori, and by listening to Mark, he gave it a lot of thought as well. This is a long-standing issue, and I want to talk about the political side, not the content of the newspaper. Because in my mind, there has been a strong trend of bias. And the definition of bias is prejudice in favor of or against one thing, person, or group compared with another, usually in a way considered to be unfair. I mean, we can go back through the notes of the city council meetings. It was discussed from the dais, from the constituents of Gardner. From 2017, we reviewed the cost and the good work, Amy. But I also agree, and I've put budgets together for the last 15 years, that if budgets are out of whack, I need to get my budget in line. If I'm understanding what Amy's information is our budget was not in line with our projected growth. And those projected growth items would be based on what those legal notices would cost us. Am I right, Mark?
Yeah.
But I really want to stick to bias. And bias is seen also in social media. I think it's KSA, and Ryan, you can help me along here. KSA 17-4758 and T5-4304. And I'm just going to read it verbatim here. quote, has generally been held that the vote of a council member who is disqualified because of bias in regard to the subject matter considered may not be counted in determining the necessary majority for valid action. I think we can look at the bias. It goes back to 2017. Then Mayor Chris Morrow provided a letter from Mr. John Lewis with the legal record that he wasn't interested in our business. It's my understanding, admittedly, secondhand, that he's still not interested in our business. The bias, the genesis of the bias is rooted from 2017 to current. And I would ask that the mayor and Councilman Melton recuse themselves from this vote tonight based on that bias. It's not about just the content, it's the fact that we've continued to talk about this. We look at the 27 August 7th. Again, Mr. Freeman was at the podium and he asked council to dictate staff to take to take no further action of record, as he did a core request and found out that in 3 surveys, all show Gardner citizens to get news from the Gardner News at a ratio of 2 to 1. He said that the Gardner News is a trusted resource to turn to find out what is going on in the city. Again, I'm not speaking about the newspaper, I'm simply quoting. He continued that this is a minuscule budget item. It is best to continue with a hometown newspaper. And I agree from that quote in 2017 of August 7th. It is minuscule, 0.01459, I think it is. I understand the projections of $98,503 over a course of 5 years. That's only because the budgets are not projected to be in line with the projected growth, which is where the legal notices come from.
I will dispute that, sir. This is not the budget. These are not versus budget amounts. The yellow is the legal record. The blue is the Gardner News. It has nothing to do with budgets.
I understand what I'm looking at here. I've got the floor, sir. You'll have time. I'm saying the budgets need to be in line with the projected growth. Therefore, those budgets would not show the disparity.
You realize if we use the legal record, the budget wouldn't have busted, right? Okay.
Rich,
I'm sorry, your
please.
floor.
It's his floor.
Do you mind?
Go ahead.
Councilman Melton stated that he doesn't care which paper it is of record. He just wants to be financially fair. He said that it's willing to table this item to allow the Gardner News to come back with a better price. Councilman Winters stated August 7th of 2017 that he did not wish to spend more time on this. I agree. Then Councilwoman Harrison stated she said that a component of general accessibility needed to be considered as well. Ladies and gentlemen, I just feel, and council, I just feel that the bias is so thick that you should not vote for the legal record. And last but not least, Ryan Dink, in July 3rd of 2017, you made a comment, and I'm not repeating the entire comment, but the end of it was, make the determination if there is sufficient circulation. I've tried to define what sufficient circulation means in reference to the 2018 Kansas Statutes 12-1651. Council, I understand the advisement of our counsel, Ryan Dink, and I think it was fair advisement. I also think that we can align our budgets with the projected growth that would not show such a shortfall from a budgeted perspective. I also believe that every dollar does count. But I also believe that we should not penalize in a vindictive way a local, homegrown business that's owned by a constituent. So I would vote for Gardner newspaper. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And again, I would ask that you two recuse yourselves during this vote.
All right, I'm going to ask Council Dink specifically what his determination is on that particular portion of statute.
So, I caught the first statutory say, which was 17-4758. Is that correct, Mr. Dorsey?
Bear with me.
On my review of that statute, it talks about acquiring an interest in, it was inapplicable, acquiring an interest in,
Yeah, I can hand over the paper if you'd like. It borrowed from a urban development. But it has generally been held that the vote of a council member who is disqualified because of bias, it doesn't necessarily, it was bore out of the urban case, but it's not necessarily specific to the urban case as I read it and as I received some feedback.
well, so that statute deals specifically with a commissioner or employee of an urban renewal agency, which has been vested by a municipality with urban renewal project powers pursuant to that specific statute. And it prohibits them from voluntarily acquiring any interest, direct or indirect, in any urban renewal project or in any property included within the project. So there, they are specifically defining bias in that context as a direct, if you own property that's within the project, you have a fairly direct pecuniary interest. This statute appears to me, just pulled it up, appears to be, it's within the urban renewal law article of the Kansas statutes. So I don't read that, Councilmember Morrison, to have general applicability.
And does that kind of pertain, like just hearing what you're saying, does that have to do with a specific type of interest or bias towards a developer or towards some sort of portion of that renewal district that would possibly constitute a conflict of interest?
Right. I mean, if you right. I mean, if you own an interest in a urban renewal project that is eligible for that project funding,
sure,
or if you own property that's within that urban renewal project, then again, you have a direct pecuniary interest in that in the amount, or pardon me, the issue before the governing body.
Correct. So you would declare that and recuse.
Right.
Okay.
I can respond generally to the issue of bias. So we don't have some municipalities have a overall code of ethics. We don't have that in Gardner that we've codified. So what I've referred to repeatedly is we do adopt Robert's Rules of Order, and they do adopt standards within Robert's Rules of Order for when it is appropriate for a member of a body to recuse themselves, and that those circumstances generally relate or come into play when there is a unique personal or proprietary interest in the matter before the body. So it would have to be something unique to you as members of the body, not a matter of general applicability throughout the community, is the way that I would define that. Or obviously, personal pecuniary interest would be an example of that, would be like in this urban renewal statute, where you could garner direct pecuniary return on the matter that's before you.
But simply establishing or possessing a policy position, i.e. a feeling of advocacy towards or against a certain approach of policy, does not in itself constitute a requirement to recuse.
Well, first off, there is no requirement to recuse except in some specific statutory contexts like this urban renewal matter,
Sure.
or if you represent.
Can't vote $28 million to my boss or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a personal interest on a contract that comes before the governing body, in that context, you're not supposed to take action. But short of those specific statutory directions, and I'm not aware of any statute other than, again, the Robert's Rules of Order, which have general provisions relating to conflicts of interest, which I've tried to recount for you.
Okay.
And then in that context, Robert's Rules of Order says you can't, it is ultimately up to each individual member to make their assessment as to whether they have a sufficient conflict of interest which would prohibit them from acting in an impartial manner.
Correct. All right, well, thank you. Thank you for that review. Did you have another portion of statute that you wanted to have reviewed?
No, I appreciate the clarification. I still believe strongly that there is bias, whether it's bedded in law or predicated on precedents.
Okay.
The last thing that I would say is that, and I do understand the free market, and I understood what Councilman Baldwin said, but again, in 2017, Mr. Lewis made it very clear that he's not interested in doing business with us. Yes, they took the most recent transaction. I was actually on the phone with their staff when just after that took place, I should say. And I do have this information secondhand, but he's of the opinion that A, he doesn't want to talk to any of us, at least me. And B, he does not want to do business with us. So if the legal record doesn't want to do business with us, what type of respect do we have for that same free market that we so value in the same breath? So my vote is for the Gardner newspaper. Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Steve,
Yes, Mark.
I just wanted to mention the governing body rules and procedures have a section on when to recuse, and
Yes.
in line with what he said.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Councilman Melton.
Well, first off, let me say, I'm shocked none of you brought this up, but Amy's intimidating. This is a first. So I'd just like to point out for everybody who's not usually here that we always have staff members step over to the side. That's the way it's been done for,
Always.
yeah, for as
We've
long as
always
I've been
had that since
coming.
public comment was allowed in the chambers.
So anyway, first thing is, I do think it's interesting. I mean, back in August 2017, I brought up the idea that if the Gardner News could match the legal record plus 5%, because that is what our policy is, that I would have no problem having the Gardner News. And here we are in 2019, almost 2020, and they have made no effort, no good faith to try to even lower the bill. I find that as a problem, and you all should too, as stewards of the citizens' money. At no point have they ever said, and it's not like we haven't given them enough time, I don't know what enough time is, we're all elected to protect the citizens and their money. And I think that this is a great example of, if we can't do just this finite amount, how are we gonna do anything really tough? We're not here to pick friends and winners and all that stuff. I got, I don't know, a handful of emails today, but you know what? I didn't hear from 22,000 other citizens. So there's a whole bunch of people who don't care what we do, and that's something to think about. So the other thing I'd like to ask every one of you before you place that vote is, what business would you personally buy from that was 80% more expensive than a comparable business? You treat this like it's your money. That's what I do up here. That's what we should all do. Where would you go and spend 80% more on anything if you had the option not to? It's a legitimate question, and I want you to think about that, because this is the kind of stuff that, we have to honestly be able to answer the public for. So I also would ask that John Lewis, seems like a great guy, is not a citizen of Gardner, so as long as he's cashing checks, I really don't care. So that's all I got. Oh, yes.
All right, thanks, Rich. Council President.
So Amy, I was wondering if you could clarify, I've asked this question last week, but if you could clarify, we can put these notices on a separate page on our website? Is that correct?
Yes.
And
we
they would be
able to do that.
updated almost immediately?
Yes, we would be able to do that. We can use the existing ordinance summary page that we have, and then I assume we can create additional page to put public notices and content up.
And we can keep those
Current.
on, yeah,
Yes.
for a long time?
For up to 12 months, I think is what they're talking about, doing a rolling 12-month period.
And then we can also have printed copies available?
Yes,
Always been.
yes.
All they have to do is contact the city clerk's office and provide a printed copy.
Can we even maybe put some in the little pamphlet holder each week?
We could
outside? People can
certainly
just buy and
do
grab
that.
them? Is that possible? Okay. So for me, honestly, you know, when I sat down to look through everything, I really wanted to err or vote in favor of keeping it with the Gardner News, but you know, when I see the numbers on here, it is hard to overlook, like Mark said. It's a significant amount of money, and my biggest concern was, okay, if we spend that money, are we, you know, providing a huge amount of more access for citizens? And as I'm going through this, I don't think so. You know, I think if we can put this on our website, I believe we also have text messages and email messages that can go out automatically. We can have printed copies. I just don't see that we're limiting access to citizens. And most cities, you know, that I've looked at as I did my search, most cities in Kansas, or a lot of the cities, are using the legal record. Olathe being the exception, but they use the Gardner News. So if an Olathe resident wants public notices, they have to buy the Gardner News, or they have to come down here to get it. So, I mean, I think we're being very transparent. I think we're being very accessible. I want to say, you know, my vote is absolutely in no way retaliatory at all. Like I said, when I started going through this, I really wanted to find a reason to continue this, but I can't justify the numbers. And so with that being said, I'm in favor of the legal record.
Dr. Todd, I have a question for you. Just to clarify, not a challenge, but
sure.
You spoke about putting them online via the city. That's not in line with the state statute, or are you saying that that's an additional step?
In addition.
Okay.
Yeah.
If I wouldn't mind.
Yeah, actually, are you done?
Well,
I'm sorry,
and so, yes, in addition, so you don't have to go purchase the legal record. You don't have to do the subscription. You could get all the information you wanted through the city's website, and we would still satisfy the Kansas statute.
Thank you.
So if you don't mind, I would also recommend that we have staff, whenever we have something ready to go, take some copies up to Ground House and to the other Ground House, because staff is frequenting
public notices?
Ground House, yes, and putting them there with the papers. So that way they would be accessible copies. We could just say that they're out there. Now, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say staff's there 5 days a week on average, or somebody wants to go get a coffee. And we can say,
they
hey,
do hang out there.
don't worry about taking your break. Go get a coffee and take these and put them in the thing, so.
Okay. Yes, Mark?
Just before we start printing off 20 pages willy-nilly and having it everywhere.
Sure.
I think we should see how many people are coming in, and then also look at, you know, once you get to a certain threshold, maybe we charge 10 cents a page type of thing, because at a certain point, we're doing the same thing by printing it off,
I'm
which
just saying.
somebody else could have done just as easily from the city website
Sure.
or the legal record website or Gardner News website. So I don't think we need to spend additionally in that regard.
Okay, it's an option.
I would say, though, having a few available, because...
A few are fine.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, just a couple of things. I know that we'll have to up our communications game. I think that the staff has already stated from here and elsewhere that they would be willing to up the communication game on this. We want to be much more transparent. We want to have those legal notices readily available for everybody. One of the things I did see when I perused the legal record, and I did get a print copy, I received it. Actually, the print copies are actually at the courthouse in the city of Olathe, where a lot of the county business is done. They have copies of the legal record there for pickup. I think they're paid for by the county, as a matter of fact, because I didn't have to spend any money for mine. But the the nice thing about having the legal notices and the legal record from the standpoint of people who want to do business with the city of Gardner is that there are many, many other legal notices from many, many other communities in that city. Also, I will maintain that, there is not an exclusive paper of record for cities. There are several cities in Johnson County. Overland Park is one of them. Olathe is another that specify multiple papers for paper of record. The law requires one paper. It does not require, requires one paper. It doesn't require that you only have that one paper. And so in the future, if the Gardner News wishes to bid for the business, I think that would be something we could potentially look at. So, having said that, are there any comments?
Yeah, I just want to play off of
Yes. Yes.
what you
Councilman.
just said.
Yep.
So, Ryan, I've got two questions for you. Again, going back to July 3rd, 2017, is there sufficient circulation to meet the 2018 Kansas statute through legal record?
So, I think, and I can't remember the conversation, but then I've got the statute in front of me. It's KSA 12-1651. Subsection D requires that the newspaper of record for second, third class cities must be published at least 50 times each year, and have been so published for at least 1 year prior to publication of any official city publication. Must be entered at the post office of publication as second-class mail matter. More than 50% of the circulation must be sold to subscribers either on a daily, weekly, monthly, or weekly basis. And it shall have general paid circulation on a daily, weekly, monthly, or yearly basis in the county, and shall not be a trade, religious, or fraternal publication.
Correct.
My recollection of that discussion, and the best indicator of that, is probably neither publication met those requirements. And in fact, because of those concerns, I do know that, for example, the city of Lenexa just home ruled out from the requirements of state statute because of their concerns that no newspaper was meeting those legal requirements.
Just because of the fact that printed publications are not nearly in general circulation as they were.
So I can't speak to whether Legal Record does or Gardner News does. I haven't done that research, but that's what the statute provides. And I can just tell you because of those, and Lenexa actually was one of those municipalities that when they designate, state statute requires you to have one newspaper record. If you're gonna have more than one, you have to home rule out from that statute, which you can do, and designate more than one. Lenexa was one of those that did, and then they changed it. I think it was Legal Record and maybe Olathe News. I can't remember what the other. It might have been the Kansas City Star. I can't remember what the other one was. They just dropped the other paper and now are using the Legal Record exclusively, but they home ruled out from the requirements of the state statute because of the difficulty in finding any publication that met those requirements.
Which leads me to my second question, and more of a clarification. Depending on the outcome of the vote tonight, and based on what you just said, do we have, let me rephrase that, should we be concerned for litigation based on the outcome of this vote tonight and based on what you just said?
Like I said, I haven't done the research. I don't know that there's an issue of legal standing as to whether the Gardner News would have legal standing to enforce this statute. I seriously question whether they have legal standing if they were trying to compel compliance with that statute. That being said, the bigger area of concern would be what some of the folks have stood up and talked about, concerns about retaliation and a First Amendment claim. So that's why, again, I'm cautioning all of you that the content, and I think all of you have done a very nice job of keeping the analysis focused on the appropriate
I'd like to
issues.
call the question. I mean,
Council Vice President Melton has called the question. That's not debatable under Robert's rules. I've acknowledged the call of the question. I am stopping debate on this. We've had quite a
Point
bit.
of order, Mayor, what's
There
the
is a
call to
point.
question?
Call to question is a provision.
No, I know what it is. I'm asking why is he calling the
It
question?
doesn't matter. There's no debate on this, Councilman
Ah,
Gorsuch.
we've got more. Go on, carry on.
All right, I will entertain a motion on Resolution 2045.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Melton, second Baldwin, that we adopt Resolution 2045, a resolution of the City of Gardner, Kansas, designating the leading legal record as the official city newspaper for the City of Gardner, Kansas. City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Roberts?
No.
Councilmember Winters?
Yes.
Councilmember Baldwin?
Yes.
Councilmember Gregorczyk?
No.
Councilmember Melton?
Yes.
Mayor Shute?
I am supposedly able to vote, but I will abstain from the vote because I do not believe in invoking a tie. Having said that,
Then
the
vote,
Resolution 2045 passes. New business item number 3, consider annexation process with landowner consent. Larry Powell.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. What we have is an annexation with landowner consent for a property that was formerly known as the Crosswinds Community Church property. It's approximately 10.83 acres of rural property located on Clare Road and adjacent to the southeast corner of the Grotto property, which has previously been annexed by this city. Said property is hereby being offered for voluntary annexation by the trustee of Crosswinds Community Church, which, by the way, has been absorbed into new life. I always say the name wrong. Hang on a minute.
New Life Community Church.
Yeah, thank you. And they are the responsible owners now of record, even though the deed is still in the name of Crosswinds. So the request is to voluntarily annex that property in, and has been properly signed, and it's ready for your action.
All right, great. Thanks, Larry. Any public comments on new business on number 3? I've seen none. Any questions for Larry on this item? All righty. I will entertain a motion on new business on number 3.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Melton, second Gregorczyk, that we accept the voluntary consent annexation agreement and consent annexation request of Crosswinds Community Church and adopt ordinance number 2641, an ordinance annexing land to the City of Gardner, Kansas. City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Winters?
Yes.
Councilmember Baldwin?
Yes.
Councilmember Gregorczyk?
Yes.
Councilmember Melton?
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Ordinance number 2641 passes. New business item number 4, consider adopting an ordinance annexing land obtained by the City of Gardner and condemnation of a property for the FAA to protect the runways. Larry.
Again, Mayor and Council, this is an item which the city has recently gained control over 18.79 acres of property adjacent to our city airport, which was rural in nature and is now under the ownership of the city. It was purchased through the FAA and with the FAA's assistance in order to protect what we call the runway protection zone off the east end of the east-west runway, or 826. This located in the city of Gardner, or will be located in the city of Gardner. This property is currently city-owned property and as such can be annexed by the city and has been signed, and request is now in place.
All right, thank you, Larry. Any public comment on new business on number 4? Seeing none, any questions or comments from the dais on this particular business item at ordinance 2642, I believe, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion on ordinance 2642.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Gregorczyk, second. Oh, Gregorczyk. Sorry, motion Melton.
It's good for, yeah, right.
Motion
Bad for
Melton,
one of us. I'm
second
not sure what.
Baldwin. I'm sorry, you're right. Motion
I know
Melton,
I'm
second
right.
Baldwin.
I'm good at
That we adopt ordinance 2642, an ordinance annexing land southeast of 175th Street and Waverly Road in the city of Gardner, Kansas. City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Baldwin?
Yes.
Councilmember Gregorczyk?
I'm not sure which one we should do it.
Yes.
Councilmember Melton?
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Winters?
Yes.
Ordinance 2642 passes. Thank you, council. New business item number 5, consider advancing operating funds to the Gardner Land Bank. Larry Powell?
Yes, sir. Again, Mr. Wolf, Finance Director, and myself have worked with a couple of different administrative people to put together the next step in creating the land bank, which we so recently put in place earlier, a couple of months ago, back in November 5th. So the next step is that the council, which is acting as the land bank board when they are in session, needs to put in place a budget so that it can in fact have legal standing according to statute. The budget would be used for the purposes of all the activities of the land bank when it was accepting or dispensing of land and meeting the legal requirements, paying for those as needed as the land bank board. So this is a request to put in place and adjust the budget, creating a budget for the land bank, and with the $5,000 to open the budget would be coming from the general fund.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Larry, appreciate it. Any public comment on new business item number 5? Questions from council on the land bank?
I have one question, Mayor, and
Yep.
I apologize in advance, Larry, I didn't ask this in advance. Another agenda item sucked the air out of the room. Would this not, or could this not be funded through the transient guest tax at all? Instead of
Yeah, I think
the general fund?
I think the land bank is not considered an economic development activity. Am I not correct in that?
I thought it was, carry on, I'm sorry.
Yes,
I have a yes and a no for both of you. The land bank is an incentive tool and can be an economic development tool for the city and can be utilized that way. Its funding in general, and I defer to the KSA statute, as I recall when we looked it up, it said that the funding could come from general funding. We only hesitated to take it from the other fund because currently we have overextended that fund and it doesn't have budgetary funds within it to take funds from for this purpose, sir.
So moving forward, perhaps we could table my suggestion and realign the transient guest tax with Southwest Johnson County EDC, which is a valuable partner, and the chamber.
We have to, we have to evaluate all of that right now. Our transient guest tax is, again, the Hampton Inn, the delayed opening of the Hampton Inn kind of put us behind the 8 ball on the transient guest tax. We do need to re-examine that and see whether or not we need to change those numbers. And I'm sure we will have to lower some of those numbers because of the fact that we're a little behind. So yes, we can consider this as part of those discussions, I'm sure.
Yeah, that way it's not funded by taxpayers, it's funded by transient guest tax, and it's an economic vehicle, if you will.
Yes.
That we would in turn utilize in the same vein.
Absolutely. Well, I would expect that any development funds would have to be coming from the development community. How's that?
Yeah.
So, okay. All right. Any other questions on this? All right, I'll entertain a motion on new business item number 5.
So moved.
A second.
Motion, Melton, second, Winters, that we authorize the city administrator to advance operating funds to the Gardner Land Bank in the amount of $5,000. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, any abstentions? New business item number 5 passes. New business item number 6, consider adopting an ordinance amending Title 13 Utilities Code of the City of Gardner, Kansas, increasing various rates and charges and amending or repealing all ordinances or regulations not in conformity.
Good evening, Mayor, Council.
Yes.
This is more of a housekeeping item. As you may know, early this year, City Council adopted Ordinance 2598, amending Title 13 Utilities Code of the City of Gardner, Kansas, 2008, increasing various rates and changes and amending or repealing all ordinances or regulations not in the forthcoming herewith. So staff were doing the modifications to incorporate the new rate charges, and while doing these changes, they noticed some errors and omissions to the original ordinance. So in your council action form, the additions, changes are highlighted in red. So those are the changes added to the new ordinance.
Okay. Great, thank you very much, Gons, appreciate it. Any public comment on new business on number 6? Seeing none, any questions for Gons on these changes? These are ones we voted on, so I hope that everybody's okay with them. All right. Entertain a motion on new business on number 6.
Second, I guess, since nobody else with
Motion Gregorczyk, second Melton.
Hey, look at that.
That we adopt ordinance number 2643, an ordinance amending Title 13 Utilities Code of the City of Gardner, Kansas, 2008, increasing various rates and charges and amending or repealing all ordinances and regulations not in conformity herewith. City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Gregorczyk?
Yes.
Councilmember Melton?
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Winters?
Yes.
Councilmember Baldwin?
Yes. All right, ordinance 2643 passes. Let me see. New business item number 7. Consider recommendation to condemn water easements for the Hillsdale Water Treatment Plant expansion.
Yes, as part of the Hillsdale Water Treatment Plant expansion project, we need a new 24-inch raw water main line. That's the line that supplies raw water from Hillsdale Lake to the plant. Early this year, city retained the services of Burns and McDonald to help us with the easement acquisitions. Burns and McDonald being very active since October, engaging with different landowners. And we submitted a city letter explaining the need for the easements. They have engaged with the property owners. They have taken some of their concerns. We have revised the agreements. But as of today, none of the landowners have signed the agreements. We met with a city attorney and we discussed what is the length of, in case the landowners don't sign the agreements, what is the length for a eminent domain process. So we're talking about 90 days from start to finish. So we will continue to reach out to the landowners and hope to get those agreements signed. But we would like to initiate the preliminary step for a eminent domain process. So the plant can be, so the expansion, the plant expansion would not be delayed.
Okay. Thank you, Gons. Any public comment on new business item number 7? All right. Questions for Gons on this process?
Just one clarification. This is in Miami County, correct?
Yes, sir. Yeah, it's all in Miami County. Yeah.
And the eminent domain piece is a portion left and right of the area that we are excavating?
Is south of the existing expansion.
Okay, and we have Miami County's consent?
Well, I think
I mean,
this isn't an annexation action.
Yeah, this
no.
isn't
I know it's not annexation. Eminent domain.
Right. I mean, we have the authority to exercise eminent domain.
We already. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Outside of our territorial jurisdictions for things like this,
So
like construction, waterworks.
It's
water
inside of that. Okay, I'm just curious. Thank you, Gons. That's all.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? Yes.
Can you clarify? Is it underground? Is it?
It's underground.
It's an underground pipe. So we're basically just saying we want to be able to put this pipe through here, cover everything back up, and if we need to get in there, we can.
Yes, sir.
It's like any other kind of easement.
How far away can we build from that? Are we like going by any houses or anything? I imagine Burns and Max scheduled this thing out for.
Actually, the easement is very close to the existing Moonlight Road.
Okay, all right. So we're using existing easement already.
So we're just off the right of way of the road itself, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
This is really all because we failed to obtain the right
We
right of ways.
we failed to obtain the original easements, and so we're kind of repairing a mess up there. Yeah, exactly. Bad decision that was made.
We probably had a
years
bad
ago.
attorney back then too. Just not now.
Rich, stop.
That was way back when.
All right. I don't think they ever went through an attorney back then. It was like in probably the 60s or something. You never know. All right. I will entertain a motion on resolution 2046.
So moved.
Second.
Motion, Melton, second, Baldwin, that we adopt resolution 2046, a resolution declaring the necessity and authorizing a survey and descriptions of lands or interests herein necessary to be condemned for the location, laying out, construction, reconstruction, operation, use, maintenance, and repair of raw water lines and improvements attendant thereto from Hillsdale Lake to the city's Hillsdale Water Treatment Plant located within Miami County, Kansas. Just as a point of clarification, this has nothing to do with any of the existing transfer lines from Hillsdale up to the city, correct? And there's no other.
Has nothing to do with the existing transmission lines.
Yes.
From Hillsdale to the city.
Understood. All right. City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Melton?
Yes.
Councilmember Robert?
Yes.
Councilmember Winter?
Yes.
Councilmember Baldwin?
Yes.
Councilmember Gregorczyk?
Yes.
All right. New business item number 7, resolution 2046 passes.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, guys. Appreciate it. Time now for council updates. Is there any member of staff who has anything for council? And before I begin, I just wanted to let folks know that our prayers are with Michael Kramer, who lost his father suddenly, and that's why he's not here this evening. I just want to let folks know that we're thinking about him and his family. So, having said that, we'll start with Larry on the right side, your left, right. Anything for council?
A couple of quick housekeeping items for you. First of all, Mr. DeVillibus wished to express his thanks for your action tonight on the CID project for Waverly Plaza. Secondly, concerning that particular item, the Public Works Department is moving forward with the Santa Fe and Waverly portions of that project. However, we have run into a couple of cleanup items on the water line placement. And so what we'd hoped to start in the next couple of weeks, we had some signs up to the public saying we were going to be closing the intersection. Those have been deferred, and we would remind the public that we have a method for them to find out through our public announcement system that they can go online and register to receive on their phone information from the city for all public announcements. For example, if we have road closings or accidents or emergencies or something like that, they can receive that information, and they can go online and insert their phone number in a protected security mechanism device, and we can get that out to them. So it's just those items for your hearing.
Great, thank you. Mr. Bruce.
I just wanted to update the trail for Kill Creek is wrapping up. Did a good job on the project. I did want to thank Tim McEldowney, Mike Gardner, and Mark Paringer. They were all big help with that project. Moving forward, we're looking to go to Kansas Department of Wildlife, Parks and Tourism in January to go for grant funding for the expansion of that trail to get us up to Symphony Farms on 167th Street.
That's wonderful news. Thank you. Thank you. Gon's got anything else for us tonight?
No, sir.
Great. Chief Belcher.
Just a quick shout out to our men and women pushing snow. They did a great job.
Amen to that.
Our
Great
officers commented on that, so I wanted to make sure. Jason, I know sometimes your guys, Public Works, they all pitch in, but great job.
I saw Nick out on the Bobcat cleaning off some sidewalks downtown. You know, good job. Good job, guys, all around. City Clerk. One quick question for you from the standpoint of the openings for our existing commissions and boards. I think we need to. Okay, yeah, we'll need to designate that interview team, I think, pretty shortly. Yes, ma'am. And let's think about having those like at the very 1st of January, because I know that, for example, Planning Commission is going to be meeting next week, and I don't think they have a full group. Am I not correct in that?
It got canceled.
Oh, it got canceled. Okay, good. So we need to have those seats filled before the January meeting, if at all possible. So those of you who want to be on an interview team for Planning Commission, please let me know.
Oh, I'd like to also.
All right, so how about Tori and Rich? That work?
That was easy.
That's great.
Government in action.
With Tori's experience with planning commission, that'll be really good. All right, so look on your calendar for the interview times to be scheduled. All right. Are there any other committees that we need to discuss other than?
Yes, there are several.
Like, I know utility. The utility advisory committee is short right now,
The advisory committee, police.
and economic development, I think. Is
Can you
also.
send out that list again? Thank you.
We'll work on it.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, if we can get that list updated, maybe send it out on Friday Minute Memo this week, that'd be great. So we can start lining up those selections. Thanks. Matt Wolf, someplace warm. How about you, Ryan? City attorney? Nothing? Okay.
Nothing to call the question, we'll be talking, so I'm assuming you guys have heard that from me tonight. I can take a hint.
I'm just glad nobody can do that to me. Well, I guess I can.
Absolutely. City administrator.
Nothing tonight.
Things are coming along on annexations, I see.
Yes.
Very nice. Good work. Appreciate that. All right. Does council have anything for staff? I will start with the council president.
No, actually.
Okay. See, I always go, whenever I go to you, you're going to say no. So, council vice president, anything?
So just real quick, Mike, I think you asked about the lights downtown and stuff. So I will tell you that from my perspective, and I'm guessing this is probably the rest of the governing body, we can't force any businesses or to put up lights on their property, and we would have to hang them for them, and then it would be our responsibility if something happened.
An assessment would have to be given out.
Anyway, it just, getting the business owners, I mean, at my office at Crown, I bought a leg lamp to get really in the mood, and we got a tree in there. That's about the best we can do.
But there's obviously like Plaza Lights is the biggest
Right.
example of this. We have a lot of districts out there that have the lighting that's coordinated. Sure. Now, typically when that happens, my understanding with Plaza Lights, for example, is that there's a neighborhood association, a commercial association that comes together and does that. I think that Waddell and Reed were the big pushers for that, and now they're moving downtown Casey Mo, but that whole area has been, they get a business group together to actually get that done. Now we can encourage that.
I mean, we can try,
but that would be.
Talk to the chamber.
The chamber and the downtown association. We have a downtown beautification committee, I believe.
Could have a competition.
I got the leg lamp. Nobody even needs to enter. I got it. So
Man.
anyway, and the other thing was as far as Main Street, that's the state of Kansas, is responsibility. Is it really? Yeah. So what happens is we've actually, I'm going to use a soft term, bribe, gave them more money.
Don't say bribe.
To push us up on the list to get the road fixed. So we're still at the.
we've got a legal counsel up there, and you're saying the word bribe.
Well, we already pay taxes, and then we have to pay them more taxes to fix what's theirs. Hey.
Okay. Well.
It's not Chicago, but it's looking like it.
Be careful.
So let me jump in. We do have a grant to resurface from Moonlight to Sycamore. So we're starting that process, the design process now. So.
Yeah. And that's the worst part of the pavement, by the way.
Can I say something from here?
Certainly. I'll let you.
Well, why don't, because you got to be on YouTube and just for the question. Normally we don't do this.
I will take mayoral privilege here. And,
I don't know if you can say normally anymore. I mean, it's pretty much all the time now.
Oh,
It is just one quick comment. Appreciate you responding to it. That was nice of you. I was just curious. So for some reason, it seems like I see some of the other cities, have lights in their downtown area and stuff like that. And I personally think it helps out our community a lot. Especially with as much as we're growing here and stuff like that, and we're wanting more business investment and stuff like that. And also, I think it just increases the camaraderie of the city and the people and all that kind of stuff. So,
but I can't make you put them on your house though either. So I mean that's the thing. So we can't make a business put them on their building. But even some of them are rented, so they don't even have.
But we could encourage the formation of a neighborhood association.
I'm not
to do that.
I'm saying,
and just provide some positive facilitation in that regard.
Also, to Heath's point, we could improve, some of our existing decorations down there too.
So I'm fine with that as long as it's, buy some LEDs and say we're selling some energy or something. So-
We're in a big LED program.
The crews did a great job the other night. I was gonna say that too, but I mean, they were on top of it. I was really impressed at how well it was going. And then, also Marvin, with Marvin's Tow, reached out to me, and he mentioned that when we have a wreck in town, we just call a random tow trucks, or how does that work? Just out of
No, we
curiosity.
go through dispatch.
We go through dispatch, right?
That's
So he-
Johnson County, yeah.
So he was saying that a lot of the cities have ordinances that are, specific to the city where the accident is, and I think it's a good idea. We have plenty of tow trucks in this town and plenty of accidents. We should probably be using them as a primary instead of calling somebody from out of town.
As long as they're not 80% more expensive.
No, it's not us that's using them. It's the, if there's a wreck.
Oh, I thought it
So-
was
and we
city-
just
city
call. No, I'm
resources.
talking about just, because that was an ordinance. So, I mean, Ryan, you familiar with that?
I am. Jim's probably familiar with it over in Kansas City, Missouri too. So I have other jurisdictions that have a tow rotation list.
Well, I mean, with the council.
They get the tow. Excuse me. The tow companies get. They very much want to have that list. And
Yeah.
so I don't know about having a residency component to it. I'd have to look at that. But I know some of the tow companies have filed litigation to get on tow rotation lists and things like that.
So do you think it's something that benefits the city to try to keep that money local, or, I mean?
I don't have any issue with that. I'm just telling you that, we can certainly look at it.
I
We
think
just need to make sure that everything,
I think
we can do all
the
that.
priority from my perspective would be that they would have to be in the zip code to be on that list, so. And have them meet the criteria with the right fencing and everything else to have that yard. I mean, as council.
You may want to evaluate that too on the other end, because if he's got exclusivity here, then they may shut him out the rest of the county.
Correct, there may be retaliatory
Because
moves.
you've got companies that are, they're home based somewhere.
Right.
And if we start doing a home base here, they may implement that or take him off the list.
Correct.
Just because he's not part of the rotation.
Sure.
I think one of the reasons why the rotation is there is to provide equitable traffic, especially for situations like for example, Marvin's got 6-7 trucks.
Well, it's to keep 6 tow trucks from racing towards an accident.
Exactly. Right. Exactly.
And just for clarification, we have a need for a tow. If the owner doesn't have a preference, say, I want to use this company, we contact dispatch, they go on the next person who's up on the list.
Okay.
If they can't respond, it's the next person on the list.
Okay,
Yep,
all right,
exactly.
so I guess.
So it's about as fair as they can get it.
Okay.
Exactly.
Across the county.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. That was what I wasn't sure about. So that was all I got for this evening.
All right, thanks, Rich, appreciate it. Councilman Baldwin.
I'd like to thank all the residents that wrote me and everyone else and also came up and spoke. That's probably the most involvement we've had on a business item in a long time, and I think that's great. I'd like to tell everybody sorry for my cough tonight. As far as the Christmas decorations downtown, I like the idea that Heath proposed of them being handled by a different organization or families donating towards it, so that we don't have to increase our cost on it. I can tell you, I came from a little town, and man, they put us to shame. I mean, it goes the whole 2 miles of town, and every single light pole has something lit up, and you can see it from 5 miles away. So it would be nice to have something like that, but I think it would be good to look at it from that perspective of having donations solicited. And the only thing I had left is to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Oh, thank you very much, Mark. Sorry, man. I just the names are sticking in my head, and I can't get them out my mouth. That's what happens when you get old. Randy Grubarsik, Council.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree with Mark on the lights. I think there's plenty of churches and Rotary clubs, et cetera, that might be interested in something like that, and then that could possibly turn into a competition, if you will. I know my wife and I reached out to Margaret Dravetta through Dave to sponsor some children and so forth. So I think there's a lot of folks in our beautiful city that have that need and want to share that. So I'd also like to say thank you very much to those folks that reached out to me via email, as well as the rest of council. I think that was a great example of what this great republic is all about, is being able to voice our opinions, being able to, whether you're left or right or wrong, red or blue, you've got that opportunity. And I responded in kind to everybody, whether I agreed with them or not, and you know where I stand. I'm still concerned about litigation, but nonetheless, I do really and truly appreciate the words from our constituents, whether they're 1% or 100%. They took the time, they did the research. Some of them even attended the meeting tonight, so I really appreciate that. I also, too, wanted to wish everybody, staff as well as citizens, a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and I hope that everybody is safe. And lastly, I would add that I was trying to time my snow blowing efforts with the city plow, and they are efficient and good, and they didn't tear up my yard this time, so I was happy. But I was right behind them, and it just happened to be that it happened on a weekend, so I was around. But as soon as he plowed, I ran out there and moved out the threshold or the skirt of my driveway, where the driveway comes in contact with the roadway. And so it was kind of a fun little something to do on a snowy day for this Texas boy. But I really appreciate the men and women that are out there taking care of the roadways and the cul-de-sacs and pushing it in the right place and trying to do their best to take care of property around them that they're servicing. So thank you very much, staff. That's all I had, Mayor. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much, Randy. Appreciate it. Tori.
Okay, well, I feel like everybody kind of stole my thunder, so I echo most of what everybody said. I do, though, think it is awesome how many emails I got from people, how many phone calls, how many texts. No, the vote didn't necessarily go our way this time, but maybe next time it will, but that's part of the process. And I'm just anxious to move on and do great things for Gardner, and thank everybody for, like I said, contacting me, and I think that's what the process is all about, so I appreciate that.
Agreed. Thank you. All right, well, a couple of things. Well, first of all, I want to really emphasize our public works team and how great they are at getting that snow moved. I was unlucky enough to be in some other jurisdictions other than Gardner yesterday when the ice was hitting, and it was the worst driving I've been involved with in 14 years of being in Gardner. Not in the city, but actually outside. When I came into Gardner, all the roads were clear. It was really well done. There was no slipping or anything like that. They did a great job of prepping the roads before the snowfall came, and and then seeing Nick out on the Bobcat was really cute. You gotta understand, Nick is like 6'7", 6'5", and he's in this little Bobcat. It was very cute. Anyway,
I'm sure he's cringing at the idea of you saying it was cute.
It was.
What an adjective.
So but it was cool seeing him out there. Cool. You know, yes, it was cool. He was cool. You know, not cold, hopefully, but cool. You know, and behind the wheel, going out and taking care of the downtown area, which was getting just nailed. And seeing the Mike Gardner and some of the other folks out there with the big plows, keeping up with the storm, and it was a tough storm to keep up with. And they did a great job, and I wanted to have my personal appreciation of how well they did vis-a-vis other communities in the area. They did a wonderful job. The other thing I wanted to mention is regarding the Christmas tree fund. We helped over 70 families again this year with the Christmas tree fund. Price Chopper stepped up and gave $3,000, and we were able to provide gift cards for all the families, and so many folks will have a better Christmas this year because of the generosity of folks in the community, and that's great to see. And also kudos to folks around the dais who have also decided to go out and pay it forward. So thank you again. That being said, we have holidays coming up. Be safe, and we'll see you all at the turn of the new year. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Melton, second Baldwin, that we adjourn. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, any abstentions? We are adjourned.